Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. We have a very special treat for you today. We are joined by writer, director, producer, published author of a sci-fi thriller, Mind Shot. So we got two published authors with us today, Christopher and Joe. Very cool. We're doing director's commentary today for Off the Cuff, the season 2, episode 9 episode of Quantum Leap. And we're so very fortunate and lucky to have Joe with us. How you doing, Joe?
I'm well. How are both of you?
Doing really
Better
good
now.
Yeah. Pretty excited to talk to you. We like the stuff you do. I'm a fan of Picard, and of course, you've done some kung fu in the Garrowverse, and even 100 Things to Do before I go to high school or something. I watched that with my daughter. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. Sort of the career trajectory, because you because I look at where we are now, and we're doing Quantum Leap, and we're doing Snowpiercer, and we're doing Star Trek, and we're doing all these kind of things. But I was in the family space for a very, very long time, and it's and I love the family space. I love doing stuff in that space. But what happens is when you become a director who is known for that genre, it's very hard to cross over and do something else. And the only way that I was able to do it is I intentionally made a bunch of feature films, like a bunch of indie films, at the same time that I was in the kids' world, sort of trying to get a foothold of sort of more adult drama and more of that kind of stuff. Because if you don't do that kind of stuff, I would still be in the kids' space. Again, a world that I really love, and I wouldn't have been doing this. So, but what's fascinating is talking to people who are watching the shows with their kids, but then also watching, where I've met. I did a show just a couple of years ago where when I walked into the office, a bunch of sort of 20-something-year-old like PAs were all gathered. They were all looking at their computer, and I guess they were looking at IMDb, and they all came over and they said, "Did you direct episodes of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide?" And I went, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh my God, we grew up on that." So suddenly I felt very old, because I'm like, wow, my audience are now working on shows, and they're all adults, and they all have facial hair, and I'm like, all right, here we go.
Very cool. So you're a fan of sci-fi. What's it like directing the cast of Next Generation and Picard season 2 episodes?
It was season 3.
I have to say, it was at first when I what a dream come true when I got that job. But the day that I arrived, and they're like, all right, so let's go meet Patrick, Sir Patrick. Your heart starts racing a little bit, because this is the guy that was playing Jean-Luc Picard when I was still in high school, and what am I going to say? How am I going to direct this guy that's been doing this character? He couldn't have been nicer. He couldn't have been more gracious. He wanted to hear my ideas. He wanted to know what it is that I saw. One of the episodes in particular actually dealt with a new side of Captain Picard that had never been covered in any of the movies or in any of the shows. So he needed sort of, my guidance in terms of how we were going to pull these, like the performance out. So we did a bunch of Zooms where it was just him and I talking about the character, and talking about Jean-Luc Picard, and talking about his own history with mental health, because it dealt with mental health. Mm-hmm. Some of the most fascinating conversations that I've ever had in my entire career were with Patrick Stewart. And so when we got on set, we had this sort of shorthand, because we had done all this sort of quasi rehearsal work. And so the first day of shooting, and I had to go and give him a note, and I walked on set. I was like, well, here we go. We're under the lights. I'm going to give Patrick Stewart a note. Is this the moment that he's going to say, like, hang on, Joe, go back. I've been playing, Jean-Luc Picard. Took the note, thought it was great, made the adjustment. And from that moment on, it was not Patrick Stewart or Jean-Luc Picard. It was director, actor. And that was the case with all the cast members on the show. They couldn't have been more gracious, more inviting. My first day that I got there, Jonathan Frakes was directing the episode while I was in my prep. So all directors share an office. So when you start shooting, you're doing your prep and you're in an office, and then you move out of the office and you go to the floor and you start directing. And then, so the next director takes the same office. So I walk into the office, and Jonathan Frakes had just been using it like the day before. And thumbtacked to the corkboard next to my desk was a note from Jonathan Frakes. And it just said, welcome aboard. It's a hell of a ride. And then he put his phone number and he said, call me whenever. And I did. So when but that's like, they were very inviting. They welcomed you into the family. And, there were times that, like the slate would come up and it would say Star Trek. And I was like, what? How am I doing this show? But just a great experience, Terry Matalas, who was the showrunner, and in season 2, Akiva Goldsman was also, it was just a joy to work with all of them.
Did you have the same experience with Quantum Leap? Were you a Quantum Leap fan growing up?
Oh yeah, no, the Scott Bakula show was I'm an 80s guy, I grew, that's the time I grew up. So that show was on the air, when I was consuming, there was only 3 networks, so I saw a ton of Quantum Leap episodes. And so when I found out that Martin was doing the reboot, or I guess it's the sort of a sequel series, really, I was very curious to see what he was going to do. And so when I saw the pilot, I was blown away, and how he took the original show and just kind of like took the next sort of step forward in the story, and continuing the story like we're in the Quantum Leap world, but it's all these new characters. And loved what he did with the romance, between Ben and Addison, and how it's evolved over the 2 seasons. Fully, like, I love and I love the characters, because you can have all the spectacle in the world that you want, but if you don't have characters that you care about, then none of it matters. So I was absolutely a fan, and and I had known Martin from Kung Fu. He was an EP on Kung Fu, and I was the producing director on that show. So when he got that show, there was a side of me that was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if Martin will call for me to go do that show, and he did, and so I was thrilled. Like when he asked if I was interested in coming on, I was like, yeah, I'm interested. Like, I want to leap into that world. No, or pun intended.
Very cool. So when you got the call for this episode, what were your first thoughts on it?
Well, here's what's interesting. So, the infamous writer and actor strike of 2023. So I was called to do this episode prior to the strikes. And so it was like I was going to be in the last 6, and it was always going to be 209. And then they when the strikes were coming up, everything just sort of paused, and they didn't do the last 6 episodes. And so the strike happens. And at this point, like, there's so much time that's gone from then to now. And I hadn't heard anything, obviously, because the strikes were going on. And so there was a side of me that was even wondering, am I still doing it? And, it's sort of the reality of the industry and what, with everything that had happened. And so my agent then calls me, and he says, hey, are you still interested in Quantum Leap? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely interested. He goes, well, we don't know when it's going to start, because the writer strike had ended and the actor strike was still ongoing, but it seemed like it was going to end any day. So people were in the office kind of gearing up and kind of ready to go, but they couldn't pull the trigger on me until the actor strike had ended. And so, I'm constantly like refreshing like Deadline and the trades, like waiting because it's like, the resolution was imminent. And so I refreshed it, and it says they have a deal. And I was like, oh my God, amazing. There's a deal. And I went to my wife, and I was like, look, oh, great, it's over. 16 minutes from the moment that article was published, that the strike was over, 16 minutes, my phone rings, and it's Martin. Wow. And I'm like, oh. Wow. I pick up the phone, and Martin is like, can you be at work on Monday? And it was Thursday. Or no, it was Wednesday. And he's like, can you be at work on Monday? We start prepping on Monday. And I was like, absolutely. And then he's like, actually, I'm going to need you to actually get onto some Zooms and talk concept Thursday and Friday. So we actually did concept. So like literally the thing ended, and we were right into it. And so they had been sort of, because these scripts had been written prior to the strike. So they did whatever revisions they had to do on the script, and they were ready to do concept, the day after the strike ended. And that's essentially what we did. And which was great. I wanted all the lead time that I could possibly get. I'd been caught up. He sent me the episodes that hadn't aired yet. Because the season 2 was still airing during this time. So there were episodes that hadn't aired, including the Egypt episode. So I hadn't obviously seen any of that. So he sent me all the things I watched. I binged all the episodes, and so I was fully caught up. And so, because I didn't want to read my script without watching all the episodes, including the Egypt episode that Chris Grismer directed. And so then once I saw it, then I'm like, then I read the script, and I was like, and I loved how it was just all continuing with all the different stories. So thrilled and excited, and and the show shoots on the Universal backlot. So as a movie nerd, it was great to be on the actual backlot and shooting a couple of the scenes on Courtyard Square where they shot Back to the Future and Gremlins. So to me, the nerd in me was in nerd heaven.
That's cool. Awesome. Yeah. I wanted to ask you more about that while we're recording too, because we noticed a few cool shots that reminded us of our childhood as well. So, all right. So now we're ready to watch along with the episode. This is meant to be a second screen experience. So if you're watching it on Peacock, play this in the background while you're watching the main episode, and just use us for your ears. And if you have the Blu-ray, then you're already watching. And we've begun.
It's amazing to me how much they've packed into this season so far.
Yeah. So if you're just joining us for the audio version of this commentary, we are here with director Joe Menendez. He directed this episode, season 2, episode 9 of Quantum Leap, Off the Cuff. And we're here with myself, Albie, and Christopher DeFilippis. And here we go. The leap in. What was this filming like? Was this actually on the road, a lot of it, a tow rig, or was it was there a screen behind him, green screen?
No, none of this was green screen. This was all LED walls. So everything that you're seeing here is that's an LED screen behind them. There's an LED screen above them, which you see the reflections on the car. That's all an LED wall. So what the DP Anna did is she timed it, because the actual background plates were a little more green than we wanted it to be. So she timed it in real time on set. So it looked like it matched. And then I'm sure in the color grade, she also timed it out some more. But so all of these shots, we were on stage, LED walls. This was done out on the street. And actually Chris Grismer, the PD, actually shot a lot of the car stuff.
Oh, cool. A lot of stuntmen on set, stuntmen.
Oh yeah. So this was exciting. So this was all done on the Universal backlot, and this was so all of this stuff here was day one of shooting. So for me, as a bona fide movie nerd, couldn't be more excited that my day one was on Courtyard Square, where Back to the Future and Gremlins was shot. Like right now, where we're shooting this shot, if I would have turned around 180 degrees, I would have been looking at the clock tower. Wow. The clock tower is right behind David here. So it was very exciting and very cool. And I love all of these actors. Just could not be more nicer and more inviting. And then, I got a little starstruck when I met Ernie Hudson, not going to lie. And we talked Ghostbusters, and I thought he would be sick of talking about Ghostbusters, but not once. Answered every question very patiently.
Well, he's got more stuff to talk about now, so that's even better.
He did talk about the sequel a little bit. He told me a little bit about what they were doing. He told me a little bit about it. Like, he didn't spoil anything for anybody watching, but he did tell me like some of the some cool stuff, and he gave me some hints, which I was very excited about. And then like apparently his son is a watchmaker or makes watches. I might be remembering there, but his son is into watches. So Ernie's into watches. And so I had a watch that he liked, and he had a watch. And then, so we were just talking watches, like just two dudes talking about the hardware on our wrists, which was pretty fun.
That's awesome.
Very cool. What was more fun, location shooting or like in the cave here with headquarters?
I have to say location shooting, because this set, as beautiful as it is, has been shot from every angle. So the sort of challenge to every director and to the DP who's been shooting this episode week in and week out is like, well, what angles haven't they shot? And frankly, you figure out very quickly that they've shot every angle. So the only thing you could do is not fixate on like, well, let me find a new angle. It's getting the character beats. And so it's a lot of performance, get the story right. So here we're
Back to the Future.
Tower, to the left of the shot. Yeah.
Isn't that the Texaco station?
Mr. Sandman gas station. That's the exact one.
Yep. That's where Marty opens the bottle of Coke, right?
That's exactly right. And this bathroom was built in that Mr. Sandman bathroom. So we were literally in a small little bathroom. Like we fit a camera and a couple operators and these actors. And so like the camera here was literally right up against the wall. Like you can see like we're using a really wide lens there. So there was no room for anything else in those shots.
Was this on the side of that building or a different place on the lot?
Same building. So this is behind the gas station. So this was all day like this. Like I'm now thinking like, God, we did a lot on day one. This was all day one of shooting. All of this was day one. So I had met Ray and Caitlin just like a week before because and so like, but a high buy, and then here we are on day one of shooting. And for a director, as a guest director, when you come on to and episodic with characters that are fully formed and actors that are sort of I've been wearing these shoes for so long. There's not much that you can do in terms of finding the character. So instead, it's talking about the beats of the story. And I think the mistake that sometimes as directors is that we want to talk about, well, hang on a second, like what would like let's discover something new. And that's where you get in a little bit of trouble. Where you discover something new is via the story and for Addison, it's like, she doesn't really want to talk about the fact that he can be brought home. So, but now there's a mission at hand. So it's kind of, she has to kind of shake off the cobwebs and say, I can't talk about the potential of you coming home. So let's talk about the mission. So for Caitlin, it was a lot of fun to be able to play these sort of, different layers of emotion. And Ray, who, for Ben, how much of it does he notice that she notice that she's keeping something from him? Does he clock it, or is he sort of so mission driven at this point that he sort of misses it? All that's in there. Like there's a little bit of him clocking it, and there's a little bit of him like, all right, on mission, like something's going on, but not enough for him. So like the way she played it was to not trigger him to like say, wait a minute, what's going on? That look, I know that look. So I thought she did a brilliant job of just kind of giving just enough where the audience sees that she's troubled, but not Ben.
David seems like a funny guy. What was it like working with him?
I mean, look, I feel like I'm saying about the entire cast, like everybody's great, everybody's wonderful, but they really are wonderful. So David is someone that worked with Martin on Blind Spot. So he's in the Garroverse, if you will, and so and Martin's very good about bringing back folks that he's worked with that did a really good job. There's another actor coming up in a second, not in a second, but in about 20 minutes, that was also on Blind Spot. So David just had really, really great comedic timing, and just these two just had so much chemistry together. I just got to add real quick, Chris Grismer. Because these shows were the schedule was so tight. Chris Grismer gave me a solid, and he came out and he shot all this car chase stuff himself.
Really?
And just crushed it. Just did such an amazing job. So I shot all of this stuff, and Chris shot all of this stuff. So while he was shooting this, I was at the farmhouse, like a mile away. So we'd be checking up on each other, and he'd be, so we would talk about like we talked about all these shots. Like what we did during prep is we just kind of walked the set, and we talked about the shots that I needed, and like we need this to tell the story. We need this to tell the story. And so he went out and shot it. He had some ideas, and then he would come over and say, like, I've got an idea. How about this? Great collaborator, great director, So for me, I sort of get the benefits of having someone of his caliber coming in and doing a pretty just super banger of a car chase.
So
And
It
then now
marries
this is
together
all
perfectly.
yeah, it really is seamless.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot of talking. So this is now with me doing it, but like even the placement of the car upside down, I shot the car upside down before Grismer flipped it, and so it was again during prep. We went out there. We said this is where the car should land upside down. It should face this direction because here's a shot I'm going to do of the guys. I'm going to I wanted to start wide and then do a push in and then find them in the car. So we see like there's no trickery. The actors are really inside. Those flames on top of the car, those were real. They were real flames. So Chris came in, whatever, I think it was like 2 days later, and flipped the car with a wonderful stunt team on the show and landed exactly in the same spot that we had shot. It was unbelievable that they were able to do that. Unbelievable.
Amazing. Can you tell me, you guys didn't really destroy two classic muscle cars in the making of this episode, did you? Or how is that done?
We did. That was a, by the way, real explosion. Ben and or Ray and David were really running from a car that exploded, and there was a lot of conversation, a lot of meetings about how we were going to do this, and it went off flawlessly. One take. We didn't do it. We only did it once. That car is really burning back there, and yes, we really did burn and blow up a classic Mustang.
Did you save the mirror or anything, or the gas cap?
No, I didn't say anything.
I think that Chevelle too has seen better days. So it's just really,
no, that's true. That's true. It was like a beater. Like we found the beater and like it was already in bad shape. So by the time like we flipped it, it was already a Mustang on its last legs or last wheels, if you will.
Gotcha.
This was it's funny because like Anna, our DP, are wonderful to be, and Anna's just truly amazing. Like she just like she and I like really hit it off, and we spoke a lot of the same language, both cinematically and because we both speak Spanish. So there was oftentimes we would speak Spanish and like just like she's from Colombia. I was born in New York, but I speak Spanish, and it was more of a shorthand. Like we were able to really kind of say quick things to each other in Spanish. But she was so concerned about, because we shot all this stuff on Caitlin a little later in the day, so you can kind of see like her edge light here in this wide shot, and then when you go to a close up of her, she doesn't quite have the edge light because we shot her piece of coverage last. So like all these great sort of rim lights that David has and on the 3 shot doesn't exist here because this was like the sun had just dipped below the hillside. But it like unless I point it out, you don't really notice it. So now everyone's going to see it. I just pointed it out. So Anna's probably watching this, going, "Joe, don't tell them this. Why are you telling people this?" But I think it looks great. I think she did a great job timing it. Like it's just
we love it.
It's only if you watch the rim light, like that backlight, then you can really tell.
And at the beginning of the shot, Caitlin was there, and she was just painted out before she swooped in.
That's correct.
Materialized.
Yeah. They she's there walking, and they just because the shot doesn't really. It's sort of a pretty obviously it's a moving shot, but it's kind of holding a nice steady 3 shot, so it's an easy paint out. And we're talking about 3 or 4 frames of her being wiped in and all that. So and by the way, here I thought David, this was like because David's such a funny actor. Here it was like there was a real moment of pathos here and drama, and you kind of like he's this like smarmy lawyer, but then here you're kind of like, oh, poor guy. Oh, geez. Oh, we got to talk about the handcuffs. Those handcuffs. Mm-hmm. Good Lord. Like they sometimes we have to use like real handcuffs because the handcuffs would come off, but there was a little bit of padding inside the handcuffs because if not, they can really get chafed. Mm-hmm. But sometimes they had to really be handcuffed, and and when we said cut, somebody from props had to come in and uncuff them because we had cuffs that were the kind that came off really easily, but they just never worked. So at some point we just said you got to be handcuffed. Mm-hmm. And so this stuff on the bus here, the bus was not moving here. Like I'm giving away all the secrets here. We were supposed to have shot this on like Forest Lawn over in Burbank, and at the last second, there was a bunch of police activity on the road, and we so anyway, we couldn't get out there. We couldn't we were intending to go out with the bus and shoot for real with the bus moving. So we then at the last second, we it's the old standard poor man's process. The bus is shaking, and we blow out the windows, and Anna again did a good job with every now and then you'll see interactive light going past like right there, and you buy it and you put the sound effects of the bus moving, and you don't think about it for a second, until now I point it out and now everybody knows, and everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, that bus isn't moving.
I felt it moving the whole time.
Because it is.
Right.
Well, technically,
but this was a real bus. So this was a a lot of crew kind of squeezing in there. I was sitting in the front seat looking at a monitor. It was, I think between the two cameras and sound and it gets tight very, very fast. And it gets very snug, and you're very close to a lot of people. It gets, we're in there several hours shooting all this stuff, and it gets very cozy. It gets very, very, very cozy. So, but nobody, there was a lot of patience. People, were understanding one way in and out of the bus. So if you wanted to get off the bus, you have to wait in line to get off the bus if people have to get off. But it's a challenge. I've done this a few times in on other shows where we're shooting I shot in a real RV and a real bus. It looks great, but it's a real challenge to shoot because you can't fly walls. You can't remove the side of the bus for ease of shooting. You're just sort of on the actual bus shooting. And
this shot looked like a new angle.
Yeah. This was one of the ones that I was like, have we done anything up here with her, leaning against the railing? And I just thought, looking down, and it seems like they've shot things there, but not really like this. So I was kind of excited that I'm like, all right, cool. This is kind of a cool angle. My fear, frankly, while she was here is oh my God, we're in the scene. What if Caitlin tips over the side of this thing and falls head first off the side of the, because there's she's leaning against the railing, but everything for me in my head, what if she slips? What am I doing? Maybe I shouldn't put her there. I should just sit her down. I can't, so it's all the things that you go through in your head while you're doing these things. And then the scene's over and you're like, oh, good. I'm glad she wasn't sitting. But you can see if she falls, she's really up there,
Yeah. Well, she's ex-military. So I think if she fell, she would land like Black Widow with that superhero landing.
100% she would land on her feet with the fist on the ground. 100% she would do that.
Joe, I have a burning question about this next scene.
Yes.
This is maybe the most palatial bus bathroom ever committed to film. This has to be a separate set, does it not?
A bone of contention, to be sure. A lot of discussions about this. Yes, it was. It made us all laugh that it was a bigger bathroom. This was on stage, 100%. You very good eyes. This was on stage. This was all on stage when he's looking out, and then this jump that's coming here, this was done, but with nobody jumped off the bus for real. Those stunt guys, if you go back and you look at the shot, it was forced perspective. The bus just rolled by and they jumped off a platform just in front of it, and they timed it out so it looked like they had jumped off the bus, but they actually did not jump off the bus.
I love that little cheat.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of conversations about jumping off the bus. How do we get the actors to do it? How do they land? And then I had done this show many years ago where somebody jumped out of a car, and I just kind of came up with the idea of let the car go through frame and the guy kind of rolls into the foreground. And then I actually did it in a movie a few years ago. So when I pitched it, there were a lot of blinking eyes wait, what? And I'm like, no, he doesn't actually jump. They're all on a platform and they jump into the foreground and the bus goes by in the background. But we did it a number of times. We did it a wider shot. We did, and then Martin actually very wisely said, you should do a tighter one too, just in case. And he was right. And we did a tighter one, and that's the one that's in the episode. But it worked. Sometimes it's the simple old school trickery,
It works. This episode has a midnight run, planes, trains, and automobiles feel. Was that intentional?
100% intentional. Alex Berger, who wrote the script, who's a great guy and a really terrific writer. That was the inspiration, 100%. You know, we talked about Midnight Run all the time. Even this jacket, you know, like that Ray is wearing, you know, it's like we talked a lot about Midnight Run, about the dynamic, you know, about the sort of, you know, straight man to the comedy man kind of vibe. Luckily, you know, Ray and David just had so much chemistry that they were able to play off of each other. Like, and then now when you bring in Josh Dean, who again is also from the Garrow universe, from the Garrowverse, as you were saying, which I love. But I had also worked with Josh on Kung Fu, and Josh did Kung Fu because he knew Martin, and Martin, you know, so it was like it's a, you know, it's like he's the kind of showrunner that when you do a good job, you know, he wants to keep the family. It really does become like a family, because he's like, I really want the same people because I know that they did a great job, and for him, it's comfort in knowing that the person that he's bringing in is going to deliver. But B, it's also a great way of sort of rewarding people who come in and do a great job for him. And so should there be a season 3, I know Martin was like, God, I would love for you to come back. So we'll see.
We'll see. What was it like working with Connor?
Oh, the kid, a great. It's interesting because, like, you know, having done a lot of kid shows, it's something that I'm very comfortable with, you know, and each kid actor is very different, because what people seem to forget is, like, these are kid actors. So a lot of times this is like their first, second, maybe third opportunity ever. And, you know, they don't have the craft that adult actors have. So, you know, there's sort of learning the craft in real time while they're working. And so what I did with Connor is, on the first take right there on the porch, is I was right next to the camera, and for each line, and what I find is with kid actors sometimes, like, not all of them, because some of them are just like little adult geniuses, but that if you do it the traditional way, where you cut and you walk over and you give them a note, and then you walk back and everybody does makeup, and then, all right, here we go, rolling. It's like 3 or 4 minutes have passed and they forget the note, or, you know, whereas it's easier if we're rolling and I'm right next to the camera, and I say, hold 1 second. I say, Connor, give that to me again, but remember, da 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 da. It's got it, and he just does the line in real time, with it. And then the moment that he's done it like that a couple times, this kid was so good, it locked in his brain. Then I was able to walk away and go sit at the monitor, because then he had it in his brain. But I found that process worked a little. And then he could do the exact same beats again, you know, because sometimes for cutting, like right now, Ray putting on his shirt, he's got to put the shirt on the exact same lines each time, so that for editing, when we cut to the reverse, the shirt's not off, the shirt's not on. But these are adult professional actors. Not a lot of kids can do that. Connor was able to do that. Connor was able to match and you know, be very technically precise, but also do things. You know, there's some stuff coming up that he does that is just great listening. You know, and what's great about kid actors sometimes is that when they're in the scene, they're just listening because they're entertained by what's going on in the episode, and that's a key to acting. You know, the key to acting is just being a very good listener.
Was Alicia's scenes all filmed the same time, the same day, pretty much, except for at the house?
Yeah, all of that stuff in the office was all done the same day. This reveal of Eliza was one that I really loved. Like, she came out of the sun flare, which I thought was really nice to kind of reveal her, because, like, she, you know, and I love, by the way, that wedding photo was using my wedding photo with my wife. They just recreated, like, I sent my wedding photo and I said, let's recreate my wedding photo. So it's a little Easter egg for my wife when she sees it. She hasn't seen it yet, so let's see what she sees.
Love it.
What she says. She might not even notice it. She might be like, what? You did what? You recreated our photo. I don't get it. You know, even black and white, even the black and white photo.
What's this dinner scene like filming?
Dinner scenes are always a bit of a challenge. You would think, oh my God, it's easy, just people sitting around a table. But if you think about all the like multiple eye lines, so you basically have to do a lap around the entire table to get all the different eye lines. So right now he was looking at Josh, and then he's got to look over at Eliza, and then if he looks over at so it's just sort of a lot of math. And so the danger is that if you do too much of it, you start getting lost with the geography. And so it's a constant need to like make sure that you don't lose the audience because if you just start cutting to heads, after a while you're like, so you need these kinds of shots where you go, oh, there's Josh eating, and so that you get oriented, because dinner scenes could really, really, really kind of become an issue. And so anyway, I always dread them. I think every director dreads them, but with a cast this good, it actually sailed by. And by the way, it was so cold this night, so cold. And you can't tell with these guys. These guys come out, they're like, but like you would say cut, and everybody would run in with coats, and they're like, I think at one point, like Eliza was shivering, and I felt bad because like when I come over to give notes, I'm wearing my big heavy coat and I got gloves on, and they got to stand there just like this, and with just a little thin shirt and little thin jacket. But yeah, this was a great farmhouse up in Santa Clarita, and just this was like, except for some of the art direction where they brought in a bunch of the things that you see on the porch. It's a farmhouse that's standing out there that was a great location I had never seen before, but just beautiful. And again, really, really, really thrilling with these two, because I was saying earlier that Ray and David have chemistry, but these two have so much chemistry, and it's so much fun to see them together and see them with each episode, their love getting stronger, and their love, and then poor Addison having to watch all this. It's really a thrill, because like there's not much that I do in terms of directing with these guys other than nudge beats and hold on a look, or say this line but don't look at her during this line, or overlap when you say that. It's what it is, because they come in and they have these performances so locked in. And so when that happens, the joy of being a director is then fine-tuning those little beats. We were talking earlier about Patrick Stewart. It's the exact same thing. All good actors come in there, they've got their character down, they know their dialogue, they know what they're going to do, they know how to play it. So what's interesting is like, so when they walk into this room, it's I set up I set up where all the props are, where all this is, but they know how their characters would react to all this. But for me, it's not so much me telling them, I think your characters would do this. It's now this stuff. How long does the look linger? How close do they get? Like right now, she's got to reach to turn off the contraption, so she's got to almost touch him. It's these are the beats where I earn my money as a director here in these kinds of scenes, because there's so much unspoken. Like there, she wants to hug him, he wants to hug her, but he can't. She's married, and this stuff over here. Then, so like in terms of directorial flourish, how do you tell this story where she's talking about loving more than one person at once? How do you really sort of hammer these things home? So you've got these close-ups, and then you have these where she's kind of looking right into the lens. And I thought of this as like, this is what Ben is looking at. This is what it's more intimate to do it there. So those are just little touches. They're not overs. They're not over the shoulder shots. They're like big close-ups, kind of like they did in Silence of the Lambs with Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins. yeah. So all this stuff, this was all on stage. And it's funny. And in that take there, the foam that was inside that, because these were real teddy bears from the 70s, so they were really old, and like the stuffing in the teddy bears in the 70s was not the kind of stuff it is right now. Like it was like the gross stuffing. I don't know if you remember the teddy bears like in the old days.
Oh yeah.
And so in that one take, if you go back and look at that one take, when Eliza threw that one teddy bear at David, it smashed, and like like in Raiders when the fly goes into Belloc's mouth and he just kept doing the line, that little famous bit. We got a little bit of that here. It's, instead of a fly in the mouth, it was the stuffing in David's mouth. He literally went into his mouth, and he kept going and did not cut. Finished the scene, and then as soon as we said cut, he was going. He goes, "It went in my mouth." I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so disgusting! That went in my mouth." Like, and then we got him water and all that. And he's a true pro. He's like, "I'm not going to ruin this take," and I think he also didn't want to get any more teddy bears thrown at him. So he's like, right. "Just keep going. He won't throw any more teddy bears at me." This was all fun to do, and this is all like really sort of fast-paced, handheld kind of stuff, like all this kind of blocking. This is the kind of stuff that a director does. Like, how do we tell these stories where like they now have to plan out this mission? Because what you don't want to do is just have two people standing around talking heads talking. So it's like she paces, she turns into a close-up, she turns back, and then now she's got an idea. And now this is fun. I had them put these shelves here in the middle. It makes no sense why these shelves are in the middle of the basement. But I love the idea of this, shooting through the gack and shooting through the stuff while they're planning. We can see the gears turning in their head. It could have just been, back and forth, two talking heads, but then you get this and they come into this kind of thing, into like a little 50-50 for this little moment. They both come up with the idea. They love it. You see the chemistry, and then always love this ending on Caitlin kind of seeing that they have that chemistry. So the audience just saw the chemistry, and now Addison just saw that chemistry as well.
Well, how did you do the water? Was the water really there, or was it movie magic?
No, all real water. We filled that set. We built a set with sort of a lip around the basement, and so we were able to fill it. It was only just not even ankle deep, but it looks deeper than what it actually was. But it was only about ankle deep. But all that was in there. We had the special effects department, put these water tanks on the other side of that sink, so they were able to pump the water in there. But so we shot the basement scene in 2 days. We shot one day dry, and then we wrapped, and then the special effects team came in, and then they filled it with water. The next day when we came in, it was filled with water. And so these jumper cables, like all this stuff over here, like I love these kind of montages, being able to do all of this kind of stuff. Like someone walks through frame, we hand off to the person in the background. It just kind of gives the montages a bit more energy. And then you just kind of settle into this kind of thing. And again, this is what the brilliant Anna does. Like she's got it lit back there, but we see the beautiful, reflections on the water. Like that was a shot that she wanted to do, to be able to just kind of see the world and see that the basement really is filled with water. When you work with a DP like her, and these great operators, it's oftentimes it's like right there, that little beat with the feet in the water. That was something that we found on set. We thought of that idea, like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if like he's got his feet in the water, he doesn't know that he's about to get electrocuted, and then when that line is said, he pokes his feet out of the water, and you're like, oh, that's funny. So these are little discoveries that you come up with during blocking.
Ask about the radio, Chris.
Yeah, he's not going to know about the radio. Joe, I collect radios, so one of my things is whenever I see radios in Quantum Leap, I try to see if they're accurate to the date. Oh. And I believe there's a radio on the dresser at the back of this scene, but it's kind of covered up by a little decorative wiener dog, and I can't really get a good beat on it, even if it's a radio at all. So Albie is obsessed with me finding radios and talking about them.
Yeah, no, I can tell you right now, this art department is very good. So they would, if there's a radio, it's probably period correct, is my guess. I love that. Like Anna and I talked about that shot there with with them with the headlamps of the car. It was very sort of almost Coen Brothers-esque, with that look. Just really great visuals, real striking stuff. Like, because it's easy for me to go, hey Anna, wouldn't it be great if like she was leaning against a car and we just see the headlamps and they're like the shafts from the headlamps, and she nods and she goes, okay, oh yeah, I think we could do that. And then I show up on the day and she's done it, and there it is. Wow. The thing with directors is we don't actually do anything. It's the old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. All that a director does and should be able to do is read a script, see the images, see how it should be shot, see how it should be interpreted, and then be able to articulate what him or her is seeing in their brain to the crew, to everybody. And if you can do that, if you can visualize things in a way that's interesting and compelling and most importantly tells the story the way the story deserves to be told, and then this is the part that's hard for a lot of directors, be able to articulate that to a DP, to a production designer, to, in this case, to the producers and the writers, like Martin and Alex, were people that I had to, and Dean. I had to constantly explain to them, this is what we're going to do, because they need to have a clear vision of what I'm seeing before I get to set, because it's obviously their show. As a director, I serve the showrunners. So it's not about me coming on set and sort of winging it and figuring it out. It's about, this is how I see the episode and this is what I think it should look like. And to their credit, they loved the ideas, and they pitched, like, I love these guys falling over, the stunt guys falling over when they get electrocuted. By the way, those poor guys were lying in that water for long stretches and did not move. Like, they were stunt guys, so they knew, like, all right, well, I gotta stay in the water and just lie here until they say cut. But anyhow, really, really great with Martin and Alex and Dean and everybody that. You share everything, you share what you see, like all of this stuff. Like we did a previs of it. I brought Martin and Alex over. They watched the rehearsal. I told them, this is what I shot some of this with my iPhone, not the stuff in the episode, but the rehearsals. I shot them with my iPhone. I showed it to them. I'm like, these are the angles that I'm thinking here, then this happens, and then this happens. You get the sign off. You get the, as soon as the way it works in television, as soon as the showrunner signs off on what you see, they are basically empowering you now to go and direct the episode, because now they understand what you see and they understand what you're going to do, and then off you go and you direct it and you deliver the episode. And that's sort of the third aspect of it. You got to see it and visualize it. You got to be able to articulate it, and then you have to be able to actually deliver what it is that you promised, because if you promise something that it's going to be this, it's going to be great, and then the showrunner's like, oh my God, I love that idea, and then you don't deliver it, then it's a problem. So it's sort of three facets to being an episodic director, because ultimately, like I said, it's up to them to keep every episode consistent. This is my episode. To me, I was heavily invested in this episode. This was my story. These were my characters for 42 minutes, but ultimately, this is part of a larger narrative that Martin and Dean and everyone is responsible for. So ultimately, it's got to work in the sort of life of Quantum Leap as a series. And it's not just this little 42-minute mini movie, as much as I looked at it as a 42-minute mini movie and I treated it as a mini movie. I also understood that this had to work in the larger narrative that is Quantum Leap. I loved all this, by the way, with them here. Like, we weren't sure what to do with Eliza. Like, should she come down? Should she be closer? And then, like, at one point, she was in the doorway simply because she was cold. And I just said, great, you stay right there. That's like, I love the visual of her, like, being separated from him. And then, and it made sense here when he was walking, when Ben walks away, the moment of, like, oh my God, I've got to talk to you. Oh, your jacket. So back there, you can see her kind of getting the idea back there when she grabs the jacket, because, like, she's doing all this in front of her husband, and so she can't tip off her husband that these two love each other. It's sort of it's sort of a tragic love story because and she loves her husband. It's not that she doesn't love her husband. She's obviously happily married. It's been 9 years and she hasn't seen, Ben. So it's sort of a tragic love story in a lot of ways. And it's just really rich, really terrific writing. And then,
it really is.
coming up here in a moment with Addison, I love this idea of Addison was there the entire time and we boomed down and we find her there. So that she's listened and she's watched this whole conversation. I thought that was also something really sort of bittersweet and tragic. And I say tragic, it's love, not in terms of,
What is Addison thinking this whole time while she's watching Ben and Hannah together?
That she's got to let him go. That clearly he loves her and that he has moved on from her. And so in a way, her watching them have that moment where it's quite evident that they love each other. For her, that means now she can go back and she could start her own life. She can go back and she can, she can move on from Ben, the walking away there, him trying to get back and again, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad, but but anyway, her watching that moment allowed her to have this moment. And, and I thought these two played it, really great. And they talk about the situation of where they work and that they can't have a traditional romance and a traditional relationship, but it's clear that they love each other. But what part of Addison is holding on to Ben, I don't know, but she certainly is wanting to move on. She certainly is trying to move on. I don't know if Addison will be able to move on because Ben is still part of her life. She's going to see him in some form every day, but she clearly wants to move on, and she clearly wants to. And he's a great guy. This was another scene that when we were rehearsing it, it was a lot of when they hug. It's finding these little, with these kinds of scenes. These scenes are tricky because they seem kind of simple and straightforward. And he proposes, and he's gonna. But then she cuts him off, and she says yes. Does it happen here in the overs? And then I said, let's do it in the hug. So I loved, we get a beautiful, passionate kiss between them. But then which is something that I think that we need to see, so we can see that they really do love each other. Anyway, this was an amazing episode and such a fun experience. I just loved every second of it. Absolutely loved every second of it.
Well, that was great having, at least for me and Christopher, a live director's commentary. We love those. It's an interactive commentary. Maybe that technology will be available in a couple hundred years for other people, but for us right now. So that's great. I hope you enjoyed watching and listening along with the episode, and Joe, who directed it. I'm sure, Chris, do you have any more questions for Joe before we let him go?
I do. You guys had been mentioning how this is evocative of Midnight Run, which is one of my favorite films. But I recorded the main podcast with Allison this morning, and I was struck by how much this episode reminded me of a lot of beats from the classic series, specifically A Hunting We Will Go, which had Jane Sibbett, which was one of the highlights of the old series, and Her Charm, which was, I think, a second season episode where Sam is on the run from some killers. And I could not help but think that, like, that phone booth scene in the back lot where the paper blows up, that is just like Hunting We Will Go. I know that you had some more cinematic things, but was the classic series at all on your minds when you filmed this, or is that just a happy coincidence for a fan like me?
Believe it or not, it's a happy coincidence. Because when the newspaper thing came up in the script, I think what Alex wrote was Ben sees a newspaper headline and sees that they're in Trenton, or like so it came from a place of, well, where's a newspaper? Is it in a newspaper stand? Did somebody leave a paper in the phone booth? And then I just said, hey, what if it's a windy day and there's a gust of wind and the paper comes flapping up against the phone booth, and then he sees where they are and it falls away. I didn't know until right now that this was something that was a callback. I think it was an absolute happy coincidence, and maybe in another quantum universe, I leapt over there, and they leapt into me. Maybe Sam is leaping into me right now, or
maybe
leaping into me when I was directing the episode.
Yeah,
gave me that idea, and then leapt out, and I thought it was my own original idea, but really it was somebody from the quantum universe.
Yeah. Go back, watch Hunting We Will Go. That phone booth scene is iconic because, and it's Sam, and he's handcuffed to somebody. So, and Jane Simmons, she's fantastic in the episode. So you'll do yourself a favor by just going back to visit that, even if it wasn't part of the inspiration. It really is uncanny that they happened. Yeah.
You know what? By the way, I will say I watched the show growing up. I will admit I haven't seen the show in decades since it ran on the air. Right? It's quite possible that stuff is in my subconscious.
Could be,
and it's just something that I called up without even realizing that I called it up from the show. I'm going to rewatch the episode, and I swear, if I see it and I go, my God, I remember that, I will reach out to you guys and tell you, yes. But it could be an unconscious, like oftentimes we think original ideas, for shots and visuals, we pull them from thin air, from the ethers. But oftentimes we've absorbed so many movies and TV shows over the years that without a doubt we're pulling from places that we don't even realize we're pulling from. So it may very well be that I pulled from that without even realizing that I was pulling from it.
Well, a good job either way.
Mm-hmm.
And,
thank you.
Yeah. This episode was a lot of fun to me, and it's only when I get the benefit of your hindsight in how you shot it. And I didn't realize, because it's so masterfully done, how many quick cuts and camera moves, and just that whole basement scene was just a phenomenal ballet of motion and cuts and angles that all fit together seamlessly. And I got to think you guys are just exhausted at the end of the day. And then you have to keep in mind, okay, how is this all going to cut together? Yeah. And it's like a Herculean task. And it's almost like, how does it come together so well? Because you have so many moving parts and such a time crunch to consider all of this stuff. So again, well done on that too.
Thank you. Yeah, look, it is a time crunch. It's a lot of this is made in the prep. You talk about these kind of sequences over and over and over, and you really kind of discuss every single beat. Luckily, I've been doing fight scenes for a long time in my career, and I had just come off of a show called Kung Fu, that it was all, like, every episode had 2 or 3 fight scenes in it. So for me, it's about, but again, because you could just kind of shoot fight scenes and just kind of cover it from like 1,000 angles and then find it in editing. For me, it's like, yeah, that's cool. That's a cool angle, but how does that angle tell a story? Like, so you want to get head turns and reactions and looks, and that's the stuff that's really important. So once you kind of figure out the sort of what the characters are doing, then you can work backwards and then figure out the blocking and the choreography of the fight. So that's sort of the trick, I think, with fight scenes, is start with the character stuff. And so, I got this character beat, and then I've got this character beat over here, and I got this. So I've got 3 character beats that I need to connect. So the choreography is the stuff that's connecting the character beats, which is actually the important stuff. And that's why, like, some fight scenes feel really emotional, and other fight scenes you kind of get numb. And I think that's what, at least what we intended to do, was use the choreography to connect the character beats.
Cool. One of my notes was the fight scene was badass. I really enjoyed it. And I'm not a fight scene guy, but I just thought it was so cool.
Thank you. Well, it takes a village. I always like to say that I stand there, and all I do is on the day is stand and point and grunt and go, yes. But there's other people, like, it's the not just the actors who have to learn all that choreo, but their stunt doubles and the stunt choreographer. And, again, lots of conversations. Martin came over and watched all that choreography. I've got it on my phone somewhere. I've got like my little previs that when I shot during the rehearsals, and I shot like, and then it's this, and there's an angle over here. And like in real time, I kind of walked it through, and I sent that to Martin and Dean, and they signed off. And then once they've got the sign off, then it's a matter of now let's make that happen in the movie or in the episode.
Awesome. Well, job well done. This episode has a lot of rewatchability, and I'm finding every time I watch it, I enjoy it more. So that's a good thing. That means it'll be one I'll pop on when I just want to watch a random episode. So great job. And thank you, Joe Menendez, for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a fun mid-season premiere, so I'm excited to hear what the fans think.
Hopefully you get a phone call again for next season.
Fingers crossed.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
I appreciate it. Thanks, you guys. I had a great time. Thank you.